Okay, here we go. This is going to be our first class working on the long stick, the bow, in Japanese referred to as the bow. We are going to be looking at it from the perspective of the Mahjong Lawhorn Pai Gong Fu system. We are going to be working on a set called the Shepherd's Staff, which is a bear of a set. It's about 200 and some odd moves long by the time we get through it all, but we're not going to dive into it right away. This is a weapons study class to begin with. So what we're going to do is we're going to study the weapon. We're going to learn about how to hold it, how to move it, the basic strikes and combinations, so that by the time we start really working on the form, you'll have an idea of a lot of the movements as individual exercises that we'll then link. Because a lot of forms, that's all they are, is they are taking a curriculum of basics and concepts and stringing them into a memorized sequence. Okay, so let's start out today. Um, One of the things we are going to be looking at working on the bow is grip and hand position. So there's going to be two main hand positions that you're going to end up working with when you have both hands on the bow. One will be where you have both palms facing the same way. So this is a very straightforward grip, and we have both hands facing down, and we want to be kind of balanced in the middle of the stick. So what we're going to be looking for a lot of the time when we're talking about stick work is where the point of rotation is going to be. And we want to have that point of rotation in a basic grip pattern in line with our center. So if we're going to work on a very basic grip pattern here with both hands down, what we would have is we'd have this where we would pull one hand and push the other. So I'm going to get you just for a moment and get acquainted with your stick a little bit. So both palms down. And what you want to do is you want to go push, pull, center, push, pull. So we want to get two forces working on the bow. One is the pushing action out of one arm, and the other is the pulling. Now, this can end up in lots of different places. Quite often when you first start, you're just kind of down by the hip, and you're almost like you're rolling the stick around your hip as you're starting to work on this. So you could go strike, strike. Now, like a lot of the stuff I work on in our classes, I'm going to always talk about rotation of the trunk, not rotation of the ankles and the knees. So you want to be able to strike, strike. Now, as a general position, you want about a 90-degree bend in your front arm when you're in this basic position, and the other one is going to be sitting on your hip. We talked about this in the sword lesson as well. The fact is, the first thing that somebody wants to do when they meet a weaponed opponent is remove the weapon from the opponent. So if we've got grips that aren't solid, the weapon gets removed very quickly from our grip. So we've got a 90-degree in the elbow, 90-degree in the elbow. Now this back and forth is at the moment parallel to the ground, but what we want to be able to do is take this movement so we can raise one end and drop the other. So this would be a temple side of head shot. So we'd go temple, temple. So what I've done now, instead of starting flat and parallel, so that's where we started, flat and parallel, I want to go one end down, one end up. So now I'm striking temple or temple. Then I can strike middle, middle, temple, temple. The last of the three major strikes from this position is going to be low. So we're going to take and we're going to drive the stick low towards the ground. So now the tail is up sort of more towards the shoulder, and the tip is down at knee, side of leg, ankle striking. So you could go ankle, ankle, ribs, temple, temple. And so a really good way just to get going with the stick, and a good way, stick is really good for creating balance, strength in the body. You've got enough weight that you're working with some extra weight in your arms, and you're having to coordinate. So a good warm-up drill is just to do that, to go temple, temple, ribs, ribs, ankle, ankle, temple, temple, ribs, ribs, ankle, ankle. So you're just getting used to moving that. Now you could put 1 foot forward, 1 foot back if you want some more stability and still do the same drill. Now, depending on the room you have available, you can also get comfortable with walking with these kind of drills. So you could step and step, or you could hit, and then step in and step in. You could think about rolling your weight from foot to foot. And so you can kind of engage with moving the body. But remember, we want both sides of the stick. We want to be turning so both sides. So we've got high strikes, we've got middle strikes, we've got low strikes. Now I'm calling them strikes, but the high and the low are also part of our deflection system. So something coming in on this corner, I might meet with my high strike. So now I'm catching something on the stick and using the stick to block. Same if somebody's attacking my ankles, I can use the ankle strike as a way to stop that weapon from getting towards my own legs. We can change the distance and the range by reaching, but the more you reach, the more the chances it might get pulled away from you too. So just take another 30 seconds or so and play with that idea of temple, temple, ribs, ribs, ankles, ankles. Now you can start to break that up after you get comfortable. So you can go temple, ankle, rib, temple, ankle, ankle, rib, temple. So you're just getting used to being comfortable having that weapon in the hand, turning the waist to make the movements happen. So don't stay so your chest is square and flick your arms. Your shoulder should come forward with this part, with the tip of the stick coming forward as well. So don't be stable, or don't be solid in the trunk. And again, you could also start to think about using the legs to shove and move your weight from side to side. So you can press to one leg, you could shift to another leg. There's low, I could cut across the front. All right, I'm shifting my weight and hitting high. Now I'm pivoting on the balls of the feet. So all the fighting, if you've done other systems of fighting, all of those shifts and rotations and stance work come along with the weapon. And this is why typically you learn in a lot of systems, you learn open hand work first. So you get a sense of being able to shift and move, but then you have to incorporate those movements into the weapon study itself. Okay, last time for these ones. So we're just playing. We're going to come back and work this material each week. Low, low. We've got middle, middle. We've got high, high. We can do that, or we can play with it in motion. We can go from high on one side to low on the other, low and then high. And so we're playing with the stick. Okay, let's look at another grouping of movements that come along with this grip. And those are the cardinal blocking directions as well. So we said we could use the tip over here to block, but we're going to go a little more vertical now with this. So we're going to start with the stick horizontal. We're going to turn the stick to vertical, and we're going to press it across the body. So we're going to go one side, central, turn, other side. And what I'm doing, it's hard to show here, is I'm coming out, if I exaggerate it, I'm coming out at an angle. So I'm not bringing this forward, I'm meeting on the angle. So this is your basic blocks for attacks coming in at the side, where you meet it and you extend it. Now, you can turn it over this way, but you'll notice if you turn it over and raise this arm, your elbow is outside of the weapon a little bit more. So what we want to do is we want to get the elbows inside. So notice now my striking surface, mostly I've got all of my body behind the striking surface. If I'm turning this up, notice now that my elbow is kind of outside of the striking surface, and there's a higher chance that I'm going to get hit in the elbow if I'm blocking that way. So from a neutral position, you can go turn, push, return, turn, push, return. And these were really emphasized actually in the stick work that I did when I was living in South India, where we spent a bunch of time working on these kind of blocking drills. So you've got a pivot, press, pivot, press, pivot, press. And these are going to show up in the Mahjong stick as well. Now, you can do variations of these where instead of pressing, you're kind of flicking. You flick it over. You flick it over to the side. So I'm not pressing as much as I'm just turning and getting out of the way. Now, we don't have hand guards when we're working with stick. So that's why we've got to be really aware of where our hands are on the weapon. So we have 3 distinct blocking zones: high, in between the hands, middle, and below the hand, the lower hand, low. So there's your 3 blocks. So you can use the same movement regardless of where the attack is coming. We can either position the block so you catch it on the upper third, or you can position the block so you catch it in the middle third, or you can position the block so you catch it on the leg. And typical of blocking and evading, you could meet the technique or you could evade the technique. So you're kind of moving from one side to the other. Okay, let's look at another of sort of the major blocking directions. And this is going to be on the horizontal plane. And this is one that I actually really liked from the work that I did in the Kalari Payat. And they had a really flexible wrist rolling technique where they lifted and flicked. And then they dropped and scooped. So it's like a flick up and a snap down, a flick up and a snap down. And so these are typically used against either straight down attacks or thrusting style attacks, where something is thrusting in, you can pick it up, you can snap it down, maybe you can get out of the way on one side or the other. And so now we have this kind of plus sign that we're working on. We have high and low, and then we have side and side. High and low, side and side. And again, you're going to want to be stable, and you could do things like meeting or slipping back. You could shuffle, you could turn, you could, these are exercises that you want to really liven up so that you can, produce them in lots of directions, because that's what combat is, producing basic movements with the right timing in the right direction. Up, down, side, side. Up, down, side, side. So there's our 4 kind of cardinal blocking directions, as well as working. So notice how this movement here is kind of similar to this rising. This is giving me a more vertical blocking position. But if I'm out here, it's very much the same thing when I'm going from one side to the other. That could be a block, that could be a strike. But as I pull this one back, notice I'm losing the protection for my middle and my legs. Whereas with the stick a little bit more on that vertical plane, that's going to protect more of the body. I'm covering as much of the body as I can. So we're turning it over, pressing, we're rising and falling. And then we had temple, temple, middle, middle, low, low. And truth be told, you don't need a whole lot more to really have effective stick fighting. Those are a lot of the real foundational movements. Now, there's lots more we can do, but if you've got a good grasp on being able to use this hands down position and both ends of the stick, you've got a lot of variations. It's like talking about with boxing that there's only 4 or 5 main punches, but the amount of combinations and the way you use them That's what really brings them alive. Okay, there's so much we can work on, but let's have a look now at the idea of leaving this central grip position. So what we're going to get now, actually, I'm going to back up. We're going to stay in the central grip position. And let's look at one more way to strike with this central grip position, or another way, and that's a thrust. So here, we're going to kind of swing the stick. So we're poking. We're going to flick. So the wrists are nice and loose, and you're flicking that out and back. Now that could be you're flicking down with it. So that could be jamming towards shins and knees, or up, or straight forward. We're not changing the position. We are flicking and driving from side to side. Now in the Mahjong set, we see this at a part where we kind of spin the stick and we strike a couple directions. So it's teaching us that idea of thrust. Now, one thing that Sifu Walters used to do for me when I was learning this is he would hold the stick, and I do this in my classes when we're all together, is he would hold the stick and I had to use the tip to tap the stick he was holding up. So, don't poke holes in your drywall or anything, but you want to get the idea you could place this into hollow spots. So typical targets for this would be into the throat, into the solar plexus, straight on top of somebody's kneecap, places where you could thrust, and it's a flick. Now, like the movements in the legs before, you could shuffle in, you could move your way back, and it can be in combination with these movements. Strike, strike, thrust, right? Strike, strike, come around, thrust. So anywhere in here, we can be tossing the tip of the weapon outwards. So it's a quick flicking motion. Okay, so let's review a few of the things we've done. So we have both hands down as our grip for now, and we had our side-to-side strikes. We had high, we had low, we had in the middle, and then variations of combining those. We then had our 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we started into thrusts. So thrusting with either end of the stick, we can thrust. And we haven't changed our grip. We're just working from that position in lots of different directions. Okay, let's look at another way to use the thrust. And this is going to show up too. So again, I haven't changed my grip. I'm still working from this shoulder width natural grip. And what I want to do now is I want to learn how to make a circle. So notice that my backhand is mostly anchored to my hip, and it's kind of becoming the pivot point so that I can create a circle one way or create a circle the other way. And that front wrist is going to be kind of active, like it's scribing a circle, circle, circle. So we've got either a clockwise circle or a counterclockwise circle, circle, circle. And this is usually used as a way of, again, blocking. So it might be that something is being thrust towards you and you're just tapping it out of the way or tapping it out of the way. You might be circling low or circling high. So you can make these circles bigger. You can make these circles smaller. When you engage with another weapon and there's a clash, these circles are very good at being able to pressure the opponent's weapon and kind of send it out of the fight for a second. So you can imagine that if you picked up a weapon low and then you circled that around, you might flick that away. Or if you picked up a weapon high and you circled it around. Sometimes it's almost like mesmerizing playing. So, you're circling, it's kind of like if you were working just fakes with your jabs and things like that. You're kind of, working somebody over. Here, that stick is in motion. See how I'm kind of playing? And then at any point out of this circle, there comes that thrust. So you can circle and thrust, circle and thrust. So you've got the circling motion, and then you have the thrusting motion. Circle, thrust, circle, thrust. Nice. Okay, time to review back over what we've done so far. So we have side, side. So we're pushing with our legs. We're driving from side to side. Then we had up and down. Then we had our corners and corners. Nice. We had our thrusts and we had our circles. So we're circling and circling. Okay, we're going to look at one more thing today with the downwards grip. And next week, we'll maybe start to look at single hands and changing the grip. So in this case, what we're going to try and create is a rowing, like a kayaking motion. We're pulling the stick to one side, and then we're pulling the stick to the other. So you're pressing down. You're pulling with the one side, and you're smashing with the other. Down. Now, we want to keep this fairly close to the body. So see how this is just kind of scrubbing past my leg. Scrubbing past. I'll turn sideways so we can see. So scrub, down, down, straight down, straight down. 1, 2, 1, 2. So down we go on top. Try not to swing wild. Remember I was talking about the beginning that middle point between the hands was going to be a rotation point. So watch the middle of my stick for a moment and see how the stick is rotating around that middle point. So I don't want to wave it all over. I want to drop one because I want my shoulder to be able to smash that stick down. I want to boom, strike with it downwards. Now, of course, if we're going to strike down with it, the opposite is going to be to come up from underneath, up from underneath. So we go strike, 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 strike. So 1 under, 2 under, 3 under, or down, 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 down. And much like we were playing with the other techniques, down, up. So you can come up from underneath, down on top. You can get a couple of rising techniques, a couple of settling, and then moving between those. Downwards and upwards. Downwards and upwards. Down, down, down. Up, up, up. Side, side. Circle, circle. Thrust, thrust. Front and back. And then block, 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 block. And I'm not going to add more today. I think that's lots of things to kind of get working with. So let's do just a little bit of a review through all of the stuff we've done. So we haven't changed our grip. We're still in this downward hand grip that is about shoulder width. We've got center lined up with our sternum, and we were able to pivot around that center point while we turn our body. So we've got our side strikes, and we said those side strikes are the same. All we're doing is changing the height of the hands in order to change the height of the strike. So up and down and side to side. Then we looked at the idea of lifting blocks and slamming blocks up and down. And we looked at our vertical blocks. And then we looked at thrusting. So we're snapping and thrusting, snapping and thrusting. And you're a little loose with the hands here, so you can get a real thrusting motion. Then we said we could circle the stick on either side. We can circle one way, we can circle the other, and we can combine our circles with thrusts, and we can combine all these techniques really. And then the last one was the downwards rowing and upwards rowing, where we're changing sides of the body by coming close to the body and pushing out, or coming close to the body and smashing down. Block, smash down. Block, smash down. Block, smash down, circle, thrust. Hit low, hit high, block low, one side, other side. You can see that with a handful of basics, you can cover a whole lot of material with this. Okay, I'm glad you came to join for our first weapon study on the stick. We worked on palm down today, hands in line. We'll start to look at how to move on the stick and change lengths with the stick. And we'll also start to look at what happens when we start to change grips, or what happens when we have real fun and we start to learn how to do spins and things of that sort with the stick. But that we'll have to leave for another day. Okay, thanks for training hard today. Ngoy. We will see you for more stick work next week. Have a great weekend.